Good morning, everyone. Looks like some of you are already on, and Angus and I were just wandering around and warming up mentally and physically. But I wanted to welcome you to this free class on articulate writing and my IVAE method, which I've just been introducing for the first time this year. Something I haven't been teaching, I've been developing basically, actually. And before I get into everything, I'm going to debrief you guys on basically how the Zoom work and how I run them. And if you haven't been on before, I know there are people who have been in my Zoom classes before on here, so they know the drill. But for those of you who have not been or are new to Zoom classes, I'm running a robot camera right now, so it is tracking me. I will not be up at the camera. If you're having technical difficulties, hopefully that you can resolve them on your end. So if you can't hear me, or if there's a problem with something, I ask people to unmute themselves and let me know, because I will be up here doing my thing. And sometimes the Wi-Fi fails or something happens, but you can let me know. And I try to keep it pretty casual, as far as like, this is sort of like an insight into my work. This is you're getting to see, my inner workings here, and I like to try to give you a virtual experience, which is basically, you can watch me train and work, and I just speak out loud about how I'm working, and hopefully provide you with some new ideas and some ways of getting in better harmony and riding for your horse's well-being, as well as having this idea that we can use less tack, we can use much more refined and subtle communication, because, as I say on my website, I try to train with respect for the horse's intelligence and sensitivity. They're incredibly sensitive and attuned animals, and we need to adjust ourselves to meet them where they are, instead of desensitizing them into where we want to be. So going back to the rules and structure, I'm actually quite happy to answer questions throughout in real time. If you're watching something and you're like, wait, what was that you just did? Or can you explain that more? Or, why did you do that? You can unmute yourself at any time. If multiple people unmute themselves, please let someone go and then mute yourself, and then hold your question till that person has asked theirs and answered. And obviously we'll take questions at the end as well, or comments. And just wanted to sort of lay that out for you, but there is no one behind the cameras, and there is just me and Mr. Angus here presenting together, and my notes, which I have here. So it stands to reason that I need to go through this sort of what I'm calling my soul of horsemanship exercises now, which, the last few years I've really been evolving and evolving and evolving, which you should as a good horseman. And the soul of horsemanship just sort of, these are tools, and they're tools that I use, and they're tools that I teach. And I'm going to go through them quickly, because I just covered this in my last course. I covered the how I apply these to this articulate riding. There was a 4-part 1-month course on this that was very in depth with off-horse exercises, and I did 3 parts of riding and working with my young Lusitano colt. And basically, I want to just go through them quickly and then go through the IVAE, and then I'm going to give my full attention and my attention to you guys and to Angus. So the first thing is the mindfulness exercise. And this is basically so you can get into a better space with your work. If you are professionals, and there are some professionals who are working with me and I'm mentoring in the mentor program, this is especially important for us professionals, but also equally important to the amateurs. The professionals tend to get into patterns and habits of roteness, not being present, and formulaic with their work. And, the amateurs, we just need tools to find a way to get into the headspace that we need to be for our horses, because we want to get clear and mindful. And the first exercise is just ground and be present. So I'm going to actually do the exercises while I'm talking about them. So before I started, I was breathing, I was working on relaxing. Angus has quite a traumatic history. I'm not going to go into his past too much. A lot of you will already know it. It's on my podcast if you want to hear his story. Let's suffice to say there was quite a lot of stuff in there, and he now belongs to one of my clients. And one of the reasons I chose him for this particular class and for bitless is because a lot of people would say this horse is not a good candidate for bitless riding. And I'm in these social media groups for bitless, and I also have him in a non-leverage, my new IKR signature bridle, non-leverage bridle. I would classify him when I got him as, first of all, he was a bolter because he would panic. So he's a very big, powerful horse. His training, he was very young. He had a very, very incomplete fundamental training, then was put into a school program where he was expected to teach people how to ride. So we know that was a recipe for not good things. And then he was sent out for training because of all these things happening, because he was bolting and panicking and doing all these things and was scaring people. And the training didn't help him because his underlying trauma wasn't being addressed, and his ulcers weren't being addressed, and his sore feet weren't being addressed. So he had several things. He's typically what I call an Ohana horse. It's a horse that was crying out for help. And the people who reached out to me, which people often do, his former owner and some people who really cared about him not ending up in a bad situation, or possibly even in the slaughter pipeline, reached out to me, and the rest is history. So I did take him in, and I've been rehabilitating him continually. He's a long haul horse. He's just starting to come into his constitutional element type, which is earth, but he has a lot of water due to trauma. And so I do not feel that he's a water horse. If you're new to my element typing, then that's on the front page. If you want to element type your horse by Chinese element types, that's something I use a lot, which again, I'm not going to go into too in depth today, but we will call him mostly earth with water that's dissipating, because he's getting more and more in balance through our whole approach here. So I said that all to say that he needs me to be very grounded and present with him. He's a horse that is, quite sensitive, and, he does not ride like he looks. But yes, he's very heavy. When I first got him, and I want to say this as I talk about him, that I'm talking about him like he's in the room. And he's heard these stories numerous times, haven't you, Angus? And I'm sorry I have to rehash them, because I don't like to have to rehash them all the time, but people need to know. But he's a lovely horse that I intervened on, on his behalf, because I see horses like this all the time, misunderstood and misdiagnosed. That he was I was told by several people that he just needs to be desensitized, and desensitization traumatized him further. I didn't do it, but the trainer who he went to did it, and he still has PTSD from that, and it did not fix his problem, and they deemed him actually dangerous and crazy. I know, Angus, we know the truth. And then I let him tell me his story. So, you know, he's a horse that needs to trust his handlers based on his experience and trust his people around him. He needed a lot of help, and I'm going to frame this. I'm going to talk about this in a way that I really think is important for people to understand, especially the dressage nerds who are here listening and the people who do rehab work. It's very important that I frame everything that I'm about to say in a positive way and not in a bad way. So I'm helping him with his suppleness. I'm helping him with his strength. And notice how that feels to say I'm helping this horse instead of saying what most horse people say is he's stiff, he's heavy. I'm just saying this because this is typical horse vocabulary. I don't talk that way because I want to bring the horse forward energetically by saying what I would like to see, what I'm going to help him with, what he's going to be. We can talk about him in the present and future. So he is, and this is part of my IVAE method. I'm helping him with his strength. I'm supporting his structure. I'm supporting his well-being. I'm supporting him in anything that he needs help with my exercises. And I'm doing it in a way which is very attuned and harmonious while listening to any complaints he may have or any communications he may have that it's too difficult, or I need to slow down, or he needs time to process that particular thing. So I'm being very present, very calm, and very grounded for him. Energy assessment, I'm just going to touch on these through. Your energy assessment is what are you bringing to the table? Because we are mirror neurons to the horse. A lot of people use the word mirroring, but the scientific word is mirror neurons. So we know this on a base level that if we are bringing a lot of certain energetic things, the horse, they can impact the horse positively, or they can impact the horse negatively. So think about what you're bringing. Be the change you want to see. Sensing is number 3. You know, be aware of what's going on in yourself and what's going on in your horse. Sense everything all the time. Notice when you're sensing, what do you notice? What do you notice in yourself? What do you notice in your horse? This slows us down. It slows our brains down. When you're trying to become a good conversationalist, I always frame training as a conversation. We always listen to the horse first. When I'm sitting on him, I'm listening. I'm listening to his body. I'm listening to his mind. I'm listening to everything I feel. We're not just sitting on a couch. We're sitting on a living being, which I know you all know. And I'm listening before I speak because I want to know what to say to him to help him. So that's what I call becoming a good conversationalist. Even after I say something, I need to listen again and see how that landed. What I said, how did that help the horse? Did it not help? You know, all of those things. So this 7th one is something I introduced when Indy came, my new Andalusian stallion, called spontaneous right choice and letting my horse shape your choice. In other words, being very intuitive. In order to do that, before you make decisions, you have to stop and feel if you are aligned with the decision you're about to make. Now notice how all these steps are going to slow you down and keep you very mindful. So you're not just moving, doing things, you know, riding exercises, getting on, I'm going to warm my horse up. We're going to do some circles, blah, 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 all of that stuff. It's keeping you in a state of making very mindful choices. And what spontaneous right action means is that if you stay present and you think before you act, ask, and do something, then you will most likely make the right choice for you and that horse in the moment. And I don't know what that is. And it might be doing a different exercise. It might be doing the exercise again. It might be getting off your horse. It might be, doing something completely unusual. These are the things you have to be present to. And I'm going to challenge you all to do these exercises so that you can think about what you're doing and you can feel harmonious, and your horse can feel harmonious about what it is, each thing that you're doing. And you'll feel aligned, which is really important. Context is a huge thing that I talk about a lot in my work. And context means horses never do anything without a reason. There has to be a reason I'm doing something. I'll go into that a little bit more as I work, but in my liberty work, in any of my work, I have to have a reason to do it. It is never just do it because. There's always, this is to help your fitness. This is to help your well-being. This is to help this injury that you have. If it's in liberty, I'm never just moving my horses around with no reason. I'm always thinking about a very detailed context, that why are we doing this? How is it benefiting you, the horse? How is it benefiting my horse? How is it benefiting us? Context, always have a reason. It can be emotional and physical. Important one coming next. When my horse says no, what do I do? Listen to the no. Ask yourself, why is the no there? And if you can't figure it out, you need to sit with it. Before you push through a horse's no, be very clear as to that you think this is the right choice. And I'm not saying it's not necessary to push through a horse's no. Sometimes when we're doing PT work and stuff, it's like a person, a horse says, oh, that's hard, I don't want to do that. And that's where we have to listen and ask for a very little and just ask for tries and build on that. But, if before you push through a no, you better be very clear why you're pushing through that no and what you think the benefits of pushing through that no will get you and that horse. So this is very important. And the last, which is pretty self-explanatory, treat always as you would like to be treated, always. And always remember that to have gratitude that a horse lets you sit on them, and that they even perform the things that we ask them. And I always feel grateful that this animal will let me sit on them and let me ask him to do the things that he really doesn't care about doing. And to be perfectly real, horses, them being ridden by us is a gift. They're allowing us to ride, and we have to thank them every day that they let us sit on their back. And especially when they put up with a lot of stuff and a lot of pain, and and they still perform in pain, and they perform amazing acts of athleticism under extreme stress and unnatural conditions. So say thanks and gratitude always. So I'm going to move on to IVAE, intention, visualization, affirmation, and entrainment. We're going to go through these again quick, because then I'm going to show you. Intention. What's my intention? Here's today's intention, is to help Angus continue to improve in his well-being and his bitless riding. That's what I call a broad intention or a general intention. And then we do a detailed intention. So a detailed intention can be what specific exercises you might say. For example, I want to work with shoulder ins today so that my horse seems very, gets stronger, gets more better balanced. These are all examples you can do. There's no wrong answers here, but the more detailed ones are the important ones too. The broad is setting the tone. The detail is setting more details for your horse and for you. So you stay very focused, very intentional, and we'll get to that more. So I'll show examples of this as we go. Visualization is the V. create a specific image. This needs to be detailed. And this whole IVAE came about because I was thinking about all the time, people talk about riding horses, and sometimes they're sitting on a horse and they say, I just think it and the horse does it. And I thought about that. I thought about that a lot. I thought about it all the time. And I said, we can do this with every horse. This is not just a special horse or a more sensitive horse or a horse that's more attuned. So I started experimenting with this on horses I didn't know, on my own horses, and I found that it worked immediately, always, with any horse that I worked with. If I wanted to do a specific movement, a shoulder in, a leg yield, a halt, a circle, if I saw the movement before I asked for the movement, then the horse started doing the movement, which told me that the cue was already happening. So that was allowing me to ride with less and less physical signal. And this is what we're trying to get to. Now, this is not magic, because what happens is when we have mirror neurons engaged and we start picturing something in our head, especially trainers who are very, very, attuned to riding these movements, muscle memory, then our brain starts sending the impulse to our muscles to start to ask for that thing. So there is a very subtle signal that starts happening already that, of course, they're already feeling. But it's so much more subtle than we are conscious of that we don't even know that we aren't registering it, but the horse is. So that's the entrainment part. But let's back up to the affirmation. The affirmation had to be put in as number 3 because your brain bully tells you at this point, you can't, your horse can't, you're not good enough, it's not perfect enough. All of the negative speak comes in at that point. And I know everybody here has that going on in their head. So I've gotten past it myself, because I've learned to use this stuff and I don't have attachment to results anymore. I just go and do my process and try to enjoy my rides as much as possible. But when you get to the visualization and then you start to go into the movement, and then that brain, that your shadow brain takes over, your negative brain takes over and says, the I can't, I'm not good enough, whatever that talk is, it's never going to be perfect. That's when you stop yourself and you say, whatever it is that you can say the opposite of that. So for example, if it's, I can't ride a shoulder in, I just keep using shoulder in today, then you could say something like, I'm going to work on my shoulder in today and be happy with a small amount of improvement, or, we're getting better gradually, or, in a month from now, I'm going to be better at this, whatever that good positive talk is that you can actually tell yourself, just anything that it can be even broad, I'm improving, we're improving, me and my horse are becoming a better team. I can get this, I can do this. Cheer yourself on, cheer your horse on. Also, this goes for your horse. When you catch yourself going, he feels stiff, or, all of these things. This is designed so you release through your own body and you help your horse release their body. So when you start having those thoughts, you release your body. And this is where entrainment comes in. And what entrainment is that you are impacting the horse based on what you're doing positively. So a physical entrainment might be, if I feel that Angus is, very tight in his right shoulder, then I will come into my own body and I will think about my shoulder relaxing, my muscles relaxing, and I will think about how I need Angus's body to move. I will not sit there and go, wow, Angus is really stiff. Wow, he really drops his weight on his right shoulder. That would be a traditional rider's speak and inner dialogue, and that would be creating more of the same. Energy follows thought. So be careful what you think about. and make sure you are thinking about where you want to go and how you want your horse to be and how you want to be together. So that's the IVAE, energy, intention, visualization, affirmation, and entrainment. It will become more clear as I work, and I'll give you examples, and I will start to show you what I'm going to do with Mr. Angus now. And again, I'll remind you that if you have questions, Angus says I'd rather go to nap now. You can unmute yourself and chime in at any time. So typically, as I walk around, first thing is I'm present with him, and I'm thinking about where I want to be in space. So here's a great thing to think about. Like people say, oh, my horse won't stay on the rail. So there's a perfect example of negative. So I'm going to visualize where I would like Angus to be in space. And the more detailed I can get, the better. So for example, the first thing is if I feel like he wants to move away from the rail, I have to be the change I want to see, make sure he's not communicating where my weight is. And I have to see him, and this is going to be very detailed. I would like you to be 12 inches from the wall. And I have to see that in my head. I think things like turn left now. It's literally like working with, you know, this idea that we're actually talking to each other. So I wanted you to see exactly, like now I'm going to visualize going across the diagonal and thinking about going across. So before I do anything, I am thinking about the movement. I'm already visualizing the turn here, and it's very mindful. Now, I haven't got into the more detailed. We'll get to the more detailed soon, but we're going to start with the basics here. We're just going to keep it easy because some of you may be more beginner riders and some of you may be more advanced. In fact, I know this for a fact, that some of you are more intermediate and novice, and some of you may be quite advanced. But this is a great place to start. I start here in my own mind because it starts me thinking about being very present and very clear about my communication. I'm going to also draw your attention to my cues. If you don't believe this stuff works, look at how little I'm doing. I'm not going to address biomechanics right now because we haven't warmed up enough yet. But I'm just simply giving what I call giving direction. Let's go here, let's go here, from point to point. The more precise my visual is, the more my horse can execute. And my brain is telling my body to communicate, but it's so much less than I would have to do if I was just thinking physical ride. I need to use my inside leg. I need to use my seat. I need to do all these things. And now he's starting to relax. And I'm thinking about turning right, going across the ring to E, seeing a very straight line in my head, turning left. So this becomes a meditative mindfulness exercise of riding. Hopefully my shushy winter clothes are not making too much noise. I can hear the shushing in my headset. So I'm going to do an exercise I like a lot. If you were in my last class, my last IVAE articulate riding class, I did the course. You will have seen me ride this, but I love sharing this exercise because it's so good. So I'm thinking up the center line and straight. And I'm like in a tunnel. Now this is a good test for riders. If you do not sit balanced, your horse will wobble. Here I'm sitting to the right. See how it took him right off the center line? I just moved my weight intentionally to the right and he fell off the center line. So there's a good example of how that exercise will help you become more centered. So that's horse listening. He was telling me I was very straight and balanced up until I intentionally moved my weight to the right to show how much that pulled him off the line. And I'm going to say turn up center line again. And I said that out loud, and as I said it, he turned. Be very intentional. I'm in that tunnel. And I'm thinking about feeling if he's telling me where my weight is. Now I'm going to intentionally go to the left. Just notice that that pulled him off the center line when my weight went to the left. This is a superpower if you use it for good and not evil. If you know where to put your weight on purpose, it will really help you. So there was just a good example of that's what I call a straightness and balance test for the rider. Anyone can do that. There's no one here who cannot do that exercise. It's great. A lot of the stuff I do is for the riders who ride by themselves a lot. These are things, if you listen to your horse is the best instructor you'll ever have. You do not need to be told. Your horse is telling you all the time. So now I'm going to go into some simple transitions. Now, the point of this class was about the bitless horse. He's obviously riding bitless. He's obviously a candidate for being bitted more. Now I'm going to start doing some basic exercises. So I've been in these groups on social media. A lot of people have a lot of interest in bitless these days. I'm just going to talk a little bit now while I set this exercise up. It's nice that he's stretching down, but he's getting a bit heavy. So the most simple basic exercise we can do when a horse wants to get on the forehand is walk halt. So I'm visualizing him moving. Before I ask him to move, I see it in my head. See the halt, see a square halt. You may or may not get one. Now, one of the keys of this exercise is, and I'm staying with my IVAE thing, but I'm also feeling, using my feeling sense, is if I feel him start to load in the reins, I don't want to wait until he's very, very heavy. So if I feel my sensitivity and increase my sensitivity, and I say, boy, it would be much easier to catch his balance if he's starting to feel a little bit heavy than if I wait until I'm being pulled out of the tack. So that's one tip. So one of the reasons I used him for this class to assist me, he's faculty. We call our horses faculty here. So right now I have a good feeling, I have a feeling that he's carrying himself even though he's not particularly in the frame. And I feel his balance changing here and there. And the interesting thing is to feel him start to understand where I would like his balance to be. And that's a work in progress. So how much does he how much does he understand by my timing that I would like him to try to maintain his balance at this particular place? And that is why you want to be very meticulous about, okay, this is the balance I'd like you to keep. So it's not fair to a horse to, let them get so heavy and then go, my horse is so heavy, and be all blamey. And you want to have the feeling that you can give the reins all the time, and there's just whatever the feeling is you like. Some horses are lighter, some horses are heavy. But this is a horse that really could get heavy if he was allowed to. And also could be very heavy in one rein or the other biomechanically. The next thing you can do is, if you feel like right there, I felt him, do this really slow. Right there, I felt him stop and then lean on the bridle. So he's starting to drop into my hand, which is nice, but he's also leaning on the bridle. So I'm going to take 3 steps back. I'm thinking about the backup. I'm visualizing the backup. I'm seeing him take a nice diagonal backup. And then I'm going to stop again and see what feel I have. And now he feels very nice in the bridle. So remember, backing up is a suppleness exercise. It helps stretch your horse's hamstrings, and it also helps to stretch them longitudinally, which means from the pole to the tail. So if you are more advanced riders, this will be old hat for you, but we have to stay with what everybody needs to learn. Sometimes we need refreshers. So I just adjusted him again. I have a nice feeling again. And I'm going to move into now an exercise that some of you may know and some of you may not, but halt to shoulder in. Now, this one I've had a lot of fun. I've had a lot of fun doing lateral work through visualization because it's so amazing how much the horses will just do it if you just think about it. Now, some of you may going, well, I have no idea how to ride these movements. And before I go into the halt and shoulder in, we're going to do some movements that most people can do with their horses with some practice. Turn on the forehand. It's a basic movement where a horse crosses their back leg. And if you have not ridden these movements a lot, one of the best things you can do is either watch me doing them and watch carefully what the horse is doing, or watch some videos, even go on YouTube, look these things up. Because if you see the movement being done, your brain will start to actually be able to visualize it. Even if you don't think you can do it, you'll start to understand that you can do it. So those are 2 movements right there that most people can do. Turn on the forehand. And I'm going to go into this time into shoulder in the halt. Now, just because you do shoulder in does not mean that your horse is light. So he stepped into a very on the forehand shoulder in. So I actually took a step back, and we're going to try to walk while still in the shoulder in position. We're doing this really slow because Angus is actually likes to do, he's Tai Chi style horse. He can be quick moving, but he can't do movements quickly if he's moving too fast. So it's okay. I know dressage, we're all about the forward, forward, forward. So now I have to be aware of how he feels in the movement. So here is a better feeling in the shoulder in. And I took a step back again, because this could be your horse. One of the things I noticed about Angus that I'm trying to help him with is he will kind of want to take you a little forward in the movement and lean into, and this is what draft horses are bred for, so it's not a criticism, Angus. So yes, to think, he doesn't think up and back, so I'm trying to help him think up in his balance. So that has a nice feeling there. So these are the most basic exercises. You know, training isn't fancy. It's using a lot of gymnastics and using a lot of basic movements. And when I'm in these bitless groups and I see these questions all the time, well, I need this leverage bit, and I can't seem to, my horse pulls and I can't ride in this bridle and that bridle. And I've always answered the same thing. You need to go back to your fundamental basics. So most basic things: transitions, suppleness, balancing work. Even if you don't know how to do any balancing work, transitions are the most basic balancing exercise. And rein back. So I try to give everybody tools for, the most basic rider can do, most green horse. So if your horse can do turn on the forehand, this is important when you think about these movements, to add these affirmations after, if you feel like your horse didn't, in your judgy brain comes in and says that movement wasn't very good, or my horse didn't do that well, you have to think about how you can support your horse. So here's a great example of that type of thought process. So I'm going to ask him to go down quarter line, start visualizing a leg yield, going. I'm actually going to halt him in the leg yield right now because he's pulling me through it. And he's actually, so here's a case where I'm making, my trainer brain says, here's the things, and then how can I help him? So I have to think about, okay, let's do a halt transition and then over. And that was just a simple way to do that. I could have also switched him to a shoulder in. I could have done a lot of things, but I'm showing you the most simple things for the people who may or may not have the skills on their horse yet for that. The most basic things to lighten your horse up. Now, as you get these movements better, then your horse should be able to bend better. So now I'm going to go for that leg yield over again, and I'm thinking about how he's crossing. And I want to go circle back to what we were just talking about, which is that leg yield. What would I like to communicate to Angus about that leg yield? And he doesn't know the difference between a good leg yield or a better leg yield or the best leg yield unless I say this is how it should be. And he's not judging it that way. I am, and you are. So now if I said, what if that leg yield, I'm going to halt again. What if that leg yield had a little more crossover in the left hind. And I thought about that. And I visualized that the left hind was crossing more. And he's asking to stretch, so I'm going to let him. So he started to ask me if you could stretch at the last one, and that's listening to his request. And I'm going to use that as an opportunity to change direction. So these exercises are helping him find his balance, find his flexibility, and supporting him. And he's got a nice deep stretch now, which is really good. And when I got this horse, he was very hollow and also had a lot of emotional tension because he was in water state, quite a dramatic water state when we got him. And he didn't like to stretch, actually. So I'm going to use that. You know, the fact that he's doing that says that his body is more supple, and give him stretches when he wants to. Allow himself to release. And not
Sarah,
worry
may I
him.
interrupt with a question?
Who's talking?
It's Angeline. Hi.
Angeline, hi.
Yes.
Nice to meet you.
Hi, nice to meet you. Student of Emily's. I have
Which
a
Emily?
question. Emily
Oh.
Halpin or Const?
Oh,
yeah, Halpin.
yes. That
Yeah.
Angeline.
Yes. Hi, Farah.
We've been emailing.
Yeah, thank you for this demonstration. It works so well with the horse that I'm half leasing from Emily. There's a lot
Who
of
do you have?
Frozen.
Which horse is that?
That's one of the off the track thoroughbreds, the black one. I don't know if you've met her.
Okay, I don't know that one. Yeah.
Okay, you will get to see her in the near future. I have a question. I mean, yeah, there are a lot of parallels with Angus and with Emily, we work a lot on getting Frozen to back up a few steps when she's getting very heavy in the bridle. But the thing that I notice is that she's a very anxious and very reactive horse for tons of reasons. But
Yes.
so as soon as I ask her to back up, that's when she throws herself up and she gets, fussy and not happy. And then I feel like, well, I lost, and I don't get her into nicer contact after the halt, after backing up and halting her again, then she's, she's outside, she's up and outside of the bridle. I don't know how to understand it and how to get her, even if it's just a couple of steps backing up. She's very reactive, and I lose the opportunity to have a nice contact in the bridle instead of her leaning. I don't know if I'm making sense in my question.
No, I think I understand. First of all, is her name Frozen?
Yes.
Okay, this is bad.
Her name is freaking Frozen.
Okay, so we have to come up with a name so I feel like names, like this is a terrible name.
Sorry,
because
Emily.
Frozen, the very Frozen, the word Frozen, means like stuck.
Oh yeah, she's a wall of stiffness.
So when you said for a minute, you were saying Frozen, and I thought, is she saying the horse is frozen? And then I was like, oh no, that's her name. Okay. So I'm serious about this. Like, we have to come up with so now we have to counter the horse's actual being, like their name, freaking Frozen. It's like even worse. So what can we come up with that is like, racehorse names are the bane of my existence. Like something that feels more movable, or even if you decide to keep calling her that, like, okay, Frozen is melted. Like this is just me because I have that kind of sense of humor. I'd be like, let's see if we can melt Frozen.
I like that.
Let's see if we can make, help Frozen become, fluid and not and like water and not like ice, things. just things like that, because it's, I feel like, I name my animals for like the things I want them to embody, or what they embody, but anyway, that's a sidebar on that. But what I'm hearing though is that, do you do groundwork with her?
Yes, yeah, Emily got me into doing groundwork, and I'm still figuring that out. But yes.
And can she back up with no tack?
Yes.
And just in the halter without doing that?
Yes.
So your derail is under saddle. So this is important, because what's happening is there's something that it could be a tack problem. It could be, if she's able to back up well on the ground, and she in the halter with no saddle on, and I specified with no tack because that is a tell to me, if she has, and if you see me doing things with Angus, you guys know why. I'm just talking and riding at the same time. Then you have to look at where the derails are, which means that, okay, well, she stopped being able to do it here. She could do it here. If you were like, oh, well, when we try to back her up with a halter on in hand, she flips out and, goes, it's horrible. And, all of that, then I'd say, okay, we have probably some bodywork issues and probably some soundness issues and all of that. So either that, and if you have had your tack fit well, and you're confident that that's not the issue, then the tack is pressing on something, that's causing her a problem, or the weight of you and the tack is a problem, or something is a problem, because if you're telling me that she can do it well without that, then I would go, then I would try putting the tack on and backing her in hand with the bride, all the tack that you use, and with you not on her. And if you see if there's a problem there.
Okay.
Yeah. And then if you have the problem without, if she backs fine, as long as you're not sitting on her, then we know that either your weight, maybe the tack's not the problem, but your weight sitting on the tack is the problem, and there's something, you have to do exploratory work there.
Okay.
Does that help?
Yes, it helps. Yeah, I have to make sure that how it is on the ground. I have to make sure that it's okay.
Yeah, start there.
Yeah. Okay.
Always start on the ground and ask the questions, and then notice where the behavior starts to appear. And always start without tack and work up to tack, because that's always going to be the case. If we start adding tack, that I look for that, I flag that with tack. If I put tack on it, all of a sudden everything starts spiraling out. That's it.
Okay. Thank you.
So yeah, no problem.
Hello, Farah. This is Rumon. Hi.
Rumon. Hi.
Hello from Portugal.
I got a couple people from Portugal today. I was like, hey, what's up, Portugal?
Yeah. And first of all, this is so meaningful to me. I don't have a horse, but when I saw you email you were offering this, I had to be here. And it's deeply moving for me. And I'll share more when I see you face to face. But what I wanted to just say is when Angeline brought up Frozen,
Yes.
body mind resonated with what you shared about the name, and what came up for me was flow, FLOW, as the name for possible,
Yeah, that's good, because we shorten the name to Fro sometimes. So flow is nice.
yes, exactly. Flow. That's what came up. Yeah.
Oh.
Or something cute like Froyo.
We just had a little kitten show up in our life, which we didn't plan, and she's Siamese and has blue eyes. First, we named her Azul because of the eyes, but one day she looked at me last week, and it was like Yoda, and she totally responded to that. So,
well, there you go.
Yeah.
But I it's really, yeah, it was hard when she said frozen. That was the first thing. And I felt that. And this is worth going into a little bit further. And
Okay.
I know you with Ramon, you'll agree too, but the energy follows thought, and the words we use are so important. And it's why I'm so careful not to say the horse is doing something wrong. You know, typically in the horse world, we say the horse is, you know, he's so heavy and he's so stiff, and oh, his flying lead changes are horrible, or he does X, like we're being victimized by the horse, and the horse has this diabolical intention to do this thing, you know, to us that he's only doing because he that's what he can do. And he just asked for stretching, so I'm going to let him. So the idea is that, you know, if we use this positive, you know, the vocabulary, we're supporting where we want the horse to go and ourselves, versus holding ourselves in this place of, you know, negativity or back, you know. And it's really important, and it's a habit, you know, it's a muscle we have to learn how to use, because it's in our culture to say the negative. I even heard somewhere saying that it's like in our survival to see something negative, just because it's part of our survival, you know, to look for these things. So, but when we change that, our interactions become positive with our horses. Our horses feel supported, and they feel our empathy for their process, versus, you know, I watch dressage trainers, you know, just brutalize horses in the name of, you know, strengthening. And it's just, it's like, what are you doing? You know, like, you have to think about the support of the animal. You have to think of, like, do they want to come back to your class again tomorrow? You know, you know, it's like, you guys are showing up for my class going, wow, this is really cool, but does my horse want to show up for my class tomorrow? You know, does he? Or he's like, wow, you made me super sore, and you were kind of mean and pushy about it, and you insulted me the whole time, which is basically the experience most horses have in the and I'm talking about more traditional training. I mean, I could go on and on about how horses are spoken about constantly in the most critical, horrible way. I compare it often to, like, how supermodels are talked about all the time, even though they're, you know, they're so beautiful, but they're always like, well, she's fat, and, you know, she needs to lose 10 pounds, and, you know, her hair is horrible, and, you know, or whatever. You know, it's like, it's how we talk about them. We say, oh, that one's ugly, they're not pretty enough, you know, I don't like that. So they're you know, they're not high performance, they're athletic enough, they're not a quality horse. You know, these are the things we hear. So it's terrible, you know, and I'm out there combating this. So so yeah, it's worth, be careful, talk about horses like they're in the room, you know, not like they're not in the room, and know that they're hearing and taking in what we're saying all the time. And
Yeah.
I deal with a lot of horses that have been told they were worthless because they weren't champions, especially race horses, by the way, Angeline. They're when they're cast away, they feel like they have no value, because people say, oh, you know, this horse wasn't a champion, he's just junk, get rid of him, you know. And I hear trainers say, well, your horse is worthless, let's buy you a nice show horse, you know, this horse you have, he's just basic, you know, you want a fancy warm blood, you know, or, you know, why do you need this junky horse? You know, it's just saying that, right? Like, no, like they're nothing, you know, every being has value. You know, just because they can't go to the Olympics does not mean they not have value. And who's going to the Olympics? That's the saying we say around here all the time. What, are you going to the Olympics? Okay, then let it go. You know? Because that's the only time you have to care about whether something is really competitively perfect. You know, and then you are going for the gold. Okay, now we have to get nitpicky about stuff. So, all right. Anyone else?
Hi, Farah. It's Christine Taylor. How are you?
You're in Portugal.
Yes, I know. I was wondering if everybody joined this because I shared it on my page when you posted it in the beginning. But anyway, but that's cool. I just wanted to comment on what you were just talking about, because
Mhm.
in my own experience of, life in general, I've been really, trying hard to focus on the positive things instead of the negative. Like you said, we're kind of trained to do that. And so
Yes.
I bought this 15-year-old horse 6 months ago, and he came with a boatload of problems. I don't need to get into them, but my background is in physiotherapy and equine physiotherapy, massage, and laser
Perfect.
therapy, and
He came
podiatry.
to you so you
it's
can
like,
help him.
yeah. So, and I knew that, and I was like all geared up for like, yep, just like all the other horses I helped, I'll be able to help him. And then, just what you described happened. I was focusing on all these negative things, and honestly, it was like overwhelming, and it felt like he was lame and we couldn't get out of it, blah, blah, blah. And then one day I just woke up and I thought, I should be focusing on all the things that are going good. Like, he has 4 legs, he can walk, he can trot, he can, you know what I mean? Just little things.
Right. Yes.
And I will tell you that literally a switch flipped in both me and the horse.
Nice.
And he suddenly became this, he puts all this energy into his movement, and he was trying to show me how he can be what I want him to be. I don't know, I just got these feelings from him that once those negative thoughts were out of the way,
Yes.
it was just amazing how all these feelings from him and how he thought about himself, I want to say,
Yes.
flowed through to me, and I started feeling how he feels about himself. And through that, now I feel like, I can work more and more and more with him. And I have these relationships with my horse, like you were talking about. You think it, they do it. You're doing the micro impulses in your body, and they respond to it, right? Because they just can notice everything.
Fabulous.
And I'm finding this with the horse that I have now, even though I never like unprogrammed all the bad training or all the buttons of what he's supposed to do when you sit like this, I just started being open to knowing that he's going to know what I want, and he does. It's just amazing. So I just wanted to thank you for bringing that up in this whole, lecture, because it really is true that if we just allow ourselves to feel from them, and the feeling, not the thought, it can really change a lot of things. So it was so happy to hear you say that.
Energy follows thought, and it's so important for them to feel supported, and it's hard because as a trainer, other trainers talk to me like that too all the time. You're like, oh, this horse is this, that, and the other. And I'm just like, do you not see that this horse is like standing here? And then they wonder why they don't want to perform,
Right.
It just becomes like this thing.
Yeah, it's amazing. So thanks for sharing that. And I'll silence myself now.
So as we were talking, I was literally saying walk, trot. I was thinking it. And one of the things I wanted to show, and I'm particularly proud of, I want to share how proud I am of Angus. Though I'm not going to say he had, unloving homes, because the people who championed him were, they called and were like, please take him, we need you to save him. They wanted him to be saved, and so he had good people in his life, but then he was thrust into a position, where he was sold into a school program at a university, and he just wasn't prepared, and he wasn't, it stressed him out because he didn't know his job. He wasn't prepared for it, which is often the case. They looked at him and said, oh, what a nice big draft horse. He should be great for our lesson program. And they didn't look at him for who he was at that time. So what I wanted to show was his transitions and that I needed to show his canter because I am particularly proud of that canter did not exist when he first came here. And this basic, basic dressage, a lot of people go, I'm not a dressage rider, and we don't do dressage. And anyone who's been around me for a minute has heard me say, if you aren't doing dressage, what are you doing exactly? Because it is the basis of all riding. And how I helped Angus become this horse who was a hollow, horse that could not do a lot of these things. And he had no canter to speak of once upon a time. And when you did canter him, it was, we have a term here, it's a joking term. And the horses know when we're joking, right? The crazy scampering canter that was, very, very tense and basically panicky, because he probably hurt when it was happening. But to have this nice balanced canter and be able to take it from the walk and have a reasonable down transition is a testament to us as a team, because he had to show up also. And I showed that because this horse was a bolter. He panicked and ran blindly. And, he was very difficult. He was very strong. He would brace his body and he would get into a position where, he wasn't very flexible. So, this is why we need dressage, because he couldn't stop himself. He would just lock himself up. So this is what happens. And so the suppleness work is very important. And how you do the suppleness work. Now you can hurt a horse with suppleness work. And you can overdo anything. You can overdo the gym. You can overdo the weight training. You can overdo anything. And also, if you don't have your horse, we use body workers here, we use chiropractors, we use acupuncture, all of these things to support our horses. Angeline, I would circle back to you and make sure this horse doesn't have Lyme, because we've had a terrible year for Lyme. So I'd like to encourage you to possibly get her tested and make sure that she's not dealing with any Lyme issues if you think that the stiffness is happening generally all the time and she doesn't work out of it.
Thank
So yeah, I can't say enough bad things about Lyme, but we deal with it. This year was really bad. We had a ton of horses get it. Treated a bunch. And yes, one of the symptoms of that is no matter how much suppleness work I do, the horse does not pull out of it. And in fact, they get agitated and feel like it's bothering them, which would be fairly obvious. So you got a nice deep stretch going. And so the exercises I've been using are basic, foundation exercises. There's no rocket science here in the exercises I'm using. If you're, basically a solid dressage rider, you would know these exercises, but it's how I'm asking them, how I'm listening, and how I'm supporting him with them. Because we all know that dressage can be used as a torture device as much as it can be, just as classical dancers, so my friends who are professional dancers, ballet dancers, it's very hard on your body. It's not good for your body. It looks pretty, but it's not great for your body. And dressage can be used the same way. It can be used as an instrument of torture and not an instrument of healing. So you have to be careful with that. And that's where the listening comes in. And the reason, again, that I used him as my faculty assistant today was that he also, I know in Europe, he'd be thought of as a cob, which is very common. You're in Europe, we have a lot of these cobby type. He's as close to what I call a cob. In America, what we call a cob, but in very much a horse that's quite common in Europe, and just would be seen as not able to do these particular things. So now here's one last thing I want to work with right now on this side, and this is taking it more detailed. So what I'm feeling is, and this is, I'm going to call this a chiropractic thing, and I'm sure all of our horses, everyone's horses have these things. As a trainer, I'm well used to this. But when I'm traveling on the right rein, I have to help Angus a lot. Notice how I said that. With the fact that because I'm helping his strength on his left hind leg, that he wants to put a lot of pressure on his right shoulder. And so I'm actually going to really carefully right now, what I feel is a lot of pressure in the right rein. So I'm thinking about, in my mind, I'm visualizing that right leg and shoulder crossing over. And as I'm doing that, he's getting lighter and lighter on the right rein. And I'm also thinking about in my right shoulder, because here is what, this is a really important thing to, for the riders that would feel this. My instinct as a physical rider is he's pulling on my right shoulder blade, is to lock my scapula back and pull up and back. And as I'm saying that, you can see me doing that. Energy follows thought. But what I need to do is mirror to him. What I need that scapula to do is relax. So I'm kind of rolling my own scapula and unfreezing my own scapula. And notice what Angus is doing as I do that. And my right rein no longer feels heavy. And if I subtly add a lateral to that, can you cross that shoulder? I have this much softer feeling in that rein. And I have to stay, and this is a part where you have to really catch yourself, because of him pulling on that rein, my natural instinct is to lock and set my shoulder against it because it's pulling quite strongly. But what I have to do is soften and think about that shoulder. How would that shoulder feel? And at that moment, I felt him release his shoulder. And that is entrainment right there. And then I let him stretch out of it. So I had to not mirror what he was doing. His mirroring to me was, I really want to set that shoulder and lock it. And I had to really say, no, this is what, be the change you want to see. And so I went through that thought process myself, because I felt him pull, and then I felt my shoulder blade want to lock. And then I said, no, you got to help him release that. And so now he feels much freer on that right shoulder. And I helped him change the way he was moving. And that is exactly what entrainment is. Now, on a basic level, we know this as riders, that we impact horses this way. But this is taking it to a detailed and very literal level. So a lot of what I want to finish up by saying is, a lot of, we talk about riding position a lot, and form follows function. And if anyone has any equitation training is about riding for form and not function. And when we ride for function and form, then we ride for what the horse needs and not what looks pretty. And that is in harmony with the horse. Now, obviously, I'm not up here being sloppy and, not looking like a proper riding position. But if I'm riding in my body and I'm aware of these things that I feel, and then I go back to my body. Now, here's the greatest tool I can give you today. If I feel something and I release it in my own body, whether or not it's the horse's thing or yours, and let's be honest, most of the time it's what we bring to the table. It's the horses is mirroring our body stuff because we're what's called the guiding nervous system. So our guiding nervous system. So when I ride people's horses, I am often feeling the person's body through the horse. So when people, Angus, can we turn around a little bit? Face up? Oh, no, we don't want to turn. Okay. So when I ride someone's horse that I have never ridden before, I can feel the rider's body through the horse, and that's in training. I can feel where the rider's stuck, where, what they're carrying. And then here we have body work sessions where people and horses get worked on at the same time. And I always tell people, do not work on the horse without working on yourself. And if you can only afford one or do one, always do your own body before the horses, because our bodies entrain the horse's body. And so what's important about that is that we understand that we can physically ride through the horse's stiffnesses and make them more supple, appear to be more supple. But if we don't release through ourselves, then we are fighting ourselves through the horse. And the other thing about that is that that tool that I gave you is what I started to say was, if I release myself to help the horse release, it's a win-win. Whether it's you or the horse, you only win and the horse wins. So it doesn't matter. You can get out of the judgment cycle of, oh, is it me? Because I know some of you who are watching right now are going, it's me, because there's that rider. And that's not helping your horse either. It's me, it's my fault. It's me, it's my fault, rider. That's not helping your horse either. What's helping your horse, though, is if you go to, whether or not it's you, just say, if I feel this thing and I'm getting this, I'm horse listening and my horse is giving me feedback, then if I release it in myself, we both benefit from that. And that's what is awesome about this technique. It doesn't matter whether it's you or the horse, and you can get out of your head and you can get into helping each other. And we should all be better after that ride, which is we leave the ride both better for it. Our bodies are better. So we're working where if I release something and he releases something, we both wind up feeling better after that, right? My shoulder feels better and yours, right? So on that note, I'm going to end and then look for more comments and questions if anyone has them. And I'll just wait to hear if anyone wants to unmute or add anything to that.
Farah, it's Pam.
Pam, I know you.
Yes, you do. Thank God.
I need to run. Thank you to all of you. This is Rumon. Much
Bye,
love.
Rumon.
Okay, bye, Ramon.
Okay. See you, Farah. Bye-bye.
When you were just on him and you were releasing his shoulder and you were releasing your own shoulder,
Yep.
when you were doing that release, were you also moving your hip? It was hard to see. I felt like you were going a little bit into your left butt.
No, I was more thinking about my shoulder, mostly my scapula, but it could have, actually, you bring up a good point, because since he was there probably was a release because he's compensating for the left.
Yeah.
You know, that probably helped him release and shift his weight back to the left. So that was just what do you call that? That was like an inadvertent added benefit, I guess, is what it would look like. So that shoulder thing was going on because of the left hind, and
Yeah.
so it helped. He had to unconsciously or consciously shift his weight. In order for that to happen, he had to use his left hind, I guess is what I'm trying to say, which is addressing the issue. So it's causing him to have to shift himself out of this habitual compensation of shifting the weight to the right shoulder. And then in order for that shoulder to release, it's a great way of seeing how, okay, well, if we take the focus off that, then he automatically has to use the part that he's compensating for in order for that shoulder to do that, right?
Yep.
So there's two ways to come at that. You know, you can think about the left hind and you can think about the right shoulder, but they're both interconnected.
Right.
So what I find is people get obsessed with a particular part, and then, you know, this is where experience for me helps, is knowing that, okay, well, if I help him here, then it's going to impact this other thing also. So everything's connected is the bottom line. One of the things you see in dressage is that people tend to fixate on one thing, and, you know, they go, it's this, it's this, it's this, but it's all connected, the whole, it's the whole. So, you know, we have
That's
to
what
look.
I was seeing. I felt like when you were working on your shoulder, releasing it, that it was almost like a string was attached to him, and he became more fluid to the left in his butt. That's what I saw. And I didn't know if you had shifted yours to do that or not, because I couldn't really see it. It's
Well,
hard.
it's the whole, it's all connected. So he had to do that in order to lighten his shoulder. He had to start thinking about that other limb.
Okay.
Otherwise he couldn't have got his weight off that shoulder.
Yeah.
So he had to adjust himself, which the cool part about all of this, and I know you're learning about this, but for the people who are more experienced, and I know there's definitely some dressage people in here, there's the problems will take care of themselves if we don't obsess about them and fix it. You know, that's the cool part about this. It's sort of like it's taken care. That's why I was saying about, if I use my own body to release that area, then the problem sorts itself out. You know, it's a win-win. It doesn't matter if it's me, it doesn't matter if it's the horse, you know. So all of these things are kind of like win-win solutions, you know. And then the best part is he feels supported, right? You know, he wasn't harassed or bothered. I listened to him when he wanted breaks, and I will repeat again to people who haven't heard me say this over and over again, I'm a less is more trainer. Less is always more. You know, do less, build on that, don't do more. You know, unless you literally are training for high level competition, or, you know, endurance riding, or somewhere where you really need a certain amount of fitness, you know, and you actually need to get to that place, then you have to make a structured program that has a lot more structure, where you have targets you have to hit. And having done competition and knowing and inventing and whatnot, you know, where you have to know what the horse needs to physically compete comfortably, and the fitness level they need to physically compete comfortably, then you know what those targets are. When you're riding for rehabilitation, then you're looking for a different fitness. You're looking for, you know, helping atrophy, which means you may only be able to do a few steps of something. You may only be able to do, you know, 1 or 2 steps of something, or, you know, they may only be able to do barely a step at all. So we always have to keep a context of what is it, what can the horse do, and where are they? So, yeah, does that answer the question, sort of?
Yes, thank you. Happy holidays.
Yeah. Anyone else out there in Zoom land?
I have a comment or two. This is Nina Lewandowski.
I know you too, sort of.
Yeah, you know me sort of. When life quiets down, which it just never seems to do, I'll try to do some more courses. But I
Yes,
appreciate that I got to be here today for this.
you did, finally.
Yeah. So one comment when you were in the beginning, when you were talking about like how you just think things and horses read your mind, I find it's interesting. Like my quarter horse, who I don't know his full history, but he kind of has a mind of his own, and like sometimes he'll feel what I'm thinking and he's just like, nah, I don't feel like doing that, or he doesn't want to because he's got some baggage and stuff. But then my other horse, who
It's
is
important though to note that just
Yeah.
because you thought it and just because they didn't do the thing doesn't mean they didn't feel you thinking
Mhm.
it.
Yeah.
Because people say, oh, that doesn't work. I was like, listen, doesn't mean they didn't hear you. It's just like a family member. You know, you can ask your partner or your kid to do something and they'll be like, yeah, I heard you, but no.
Yeah, that's
So,
kind of his personality too.
yeah. So that I need to reiterate that.
Yeah. And then my other horse, who I adopted from a herd dispersal earlier this year, he's a barb stallion, mostly unhandled his entire life. And he like reads my mind. It's really cool. Like I just kind of think, oh, could you just go through that gate and go into your paddock now? And he does it. And it's really
now
cool
you're-
because it's never, it's like
Yeah,
complete opposite.
you're getting into your now you're getting into your element types too.
Mhm.
So the element types will dictate how they deal with your thought. So
Mhm.
whether they're like, yes, I'm completely attuned to you, or wood horse, yeah, I don't know if I like your idea, mine's better. Or earth horse says, as long as everything's fair and it's not too difficult, sure, I'm game. Metal horse, you know, I'm a task doer. What task is on the table? You know, fire horse, is it going to be fun? I got lots of energy. Cool, let's do it. Woo.
Mhm. Mhm.
You know, so then when we know the element types, then we know how they react to direction, you know, and which ones are likely to question. And the water horse would be like, you know, as long as I feel safe, I'll do it too. You know, as long as I trust you and it feels safe for me, then I'm fine with doing whatever. I'm okay.
Mhm.
So, you know, we taught that in the element typing class.
Mhm.
You know, and then that I'm actually going to film more about that soon, about how we work with each individual horse, and that's where that helps with knowing the Chinese elements of your horse, to know how that horse is going to take direction, and also what they need from us as support, and also whether or not they, you know, if you have a horse that is dealing with, you know, certain things, you know, all the reasons why the no is there. We talked about that, you know, and why each one says no. So, and that's all part of the maintaining the relationship. And, you know, what I'm trying to help people do is maintain this feeling that we're in relationship around riding too, because I feel like that a lot of people also have great relationships with their horse on the ground. And then when they get on the horse, I think what happens is, you know, sometimes it's fear. You know, sometimes we have had trauma and, you know, we get on the horse and that just, you know, hijacks us. And we're like, I just don't want to fall off, you know, and this horse makes me a little anxious, you know, and, you know, he's a horse that could do that, you know, for some people, because he's had a history of, you know, he gets panicky sometimes. He's less and less now. It happens very rarely, but still, you know, if he gets triggered, you know, by something, then he can get very, you wouldn't believe that he can go from this to like a thoroughbred, you know, where he's just like, blah, and you would never know by looking at the horse he is right now. So, you know, it's really just important then to blend with all of this, you know, everything you know about your own horse and the relationship, and but what I've found is even with horses I don't know, I've been experimenting because just for my own fun and to see that they will, as long as it's fair request and you have, made it easy for them to understand. I'm going to reiterate again that the people who maybe don't know these things, like it is very much in my muscle memory to ride these movements on a regular basis. So like I probably, even my subtle cue is very like on point, like shoulder in, my muscle memory is just like, we've ridden that movement a bazillion times. So for the people who don't have that, go for the simpler movements, but watch the movements, watch riders riding the movement, because I spoke about this in my last class about how they took 2 basketball teams and they studied them. There was a research study done on one team only visualized themselves improving their game, and the other team practiced as hard as they could, physically practiced, drilled and drilled and drilled. And both teams improved the same amount. The ones that just visualized their game improving and the ones that practiced physically. So that should tell you that if you can visualize something getting better, and that's where the A is in the IVAE, if you can visualize that movement getting better and see it, even if you're like, oh, it just feels so clunky and oh, feels like, he's a great horse for that, his movements sometimes feel, like they're just not as fluid as they could be. But I try to think of, I showed there that when I felt that, I said, oh, if he could just show him the picture of him crossing over a little bit more, a little bit better than he did. He did what he can do, the best that Angus can do. And that's why he's an amazing, for a draft type horse. He has actually got a beautiful, you saw, I showed his canter. I was showing off his canter because it came so far. But, how you could take this horse and go there. And yeah, just believe in the horse, believe in the horse, believe in the relationship, even when they say no. So is there any other comment, Nina?
I did have another question.
Mm-hmm.
It's not, a little bit unrelated to this session, but one of my horses did have anaplasmosis this fall, which is also a tick-borne thing.
Yep.
And I was just curious if you had any things you might use to support them as they get over things like that, or does it really depend on energy type, or so just in general?
Zoopharmacognosy. Start
Mhm.
offering them herbs.
Okay.
Did you do the zoopharmacognosy class?
I was not able to, no.
Yeah, just I offer them, they'll pick like antibacterials and antivirals and all kinds of stuff to support themselves. That's the best thing, is to
Okay.
offer them that stuff, and they will self repair. So or cut things from your property if you don't have, walk around and walk your horse around all the scrub and weeds and see what they take. And if you don't know what it is, picture this app on your phone and ID it and then look it up. So yeah, that's a picture. This app is awesome for that. But so anything else, or?
No, just thank you for doing this kind of stuff. That's really informative.
All right, I'm glad you appreciate it. And anyone else got any comments, questions?
Yes. Hi, Farah. This is Paula. How are you?
Paula, I know you.
Yeah, you know me. Love this class. It was great. Thank you for doing it. Really
You're
appreciate it. Yeah, it's great. And I don't really have any questions. Everything was great. And I had Merry Christmas. And I want to be getting this bridle, so I'm going to definitely order it.
Yeah, they're up on the site now, and there's some on our way.
They're on the site.
As we speak.
Yeah, probably.
Yeah,
Probably next week.
Yeah, they're on their way. We couldn't get them in time for Christmas production, but they're definitely
Well, they-
on route.
Okay, good. Thank you.
Yeah, and I was thinking about you and your horses in the bitless thing too, because I know when we were working together more closely that, yeah, I know that some of your horses, yeah,
Well, yeah,
he
it's all-
reminded me of because I know he doesn't look like it, but he came with panic attacks and,
Oh,
he would
yep.
just flip it, so this is a product of, rehab, but, yeah, it's just to give you hope, I guess is what I was trying to say. that we
I do have yours,
Yeah.
the original version, and I
Yep.
do use it. With,
Yeah.
two of them. So with Axel and with Hildy. But I mean, I love the look of this one, and it looks like it would be even more effective.
Yeah, it doesn't read, it's a little bit different. It's more like, one of the things was getting, just the way it lays, a little bit different. I call this more of the riding one. The other one I'm sort of saying is my all-purpose training now, because this one doesn't have all the rings and things for doing groundwork and stuff, and the other one, I don't do as much you can do groundwork in this, but I prefer the other one for doing that kind
Yeah.
of stuff too. It's more
Which is how
versatile.
I use, which is how I use
Yeah.
the other one. It's great for
Yeah.
that. Absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah.
But
So
no.
this one, I really was looking for like just a riding bridle, and I was able to put more padding. There's always more padding and more bling, because that's cool. And it has a little more padding at the chin. And but yeah, and then the cool colored stitching.
Yeah, no, it's really very attractive.
Yeah, and but some, it's more slanted towards, well, I shouldn't discipline stylize it, but I see it as more of an English style than the other one could be more like
True.
more
That's
crosses over Western English kind of all-purposey.
Yep.
But yeah, so I thought about him. You came into my mind, yeah, because when I worked with him.
Yeah, who did you think of? Was it Axel?
Axel a little, but more even like Grant, Yeah. Like he was
That is exactly what I thought when I saw
he
you,
was Grant when we got him, and
I believe it.
It's a myth because and actually just because everyone else won't know what we're talking about, but Paula he's a Morgan, right?
Yeah, he's a Morgan rescue.
But he was very sensitive, also extremely, like reactive and just very, very like needed it a lot. Did he have trauma? Yeah, you said he had.
He did. He had physical trauma. Yep.
Yeah, so same story, a lot of trauma in his history, but the big difference was that everyone just kept pigeonholing him. Morgans, I feel like, can be sensitive as a breed, depending on what their bloodlines are. But people were looking at him and going, well, he's just a big draft horse. Why is he like that? And then he was so powerful, he was scaring people because he was so physically strong. And so then when you would panic, he would just lock down, and so but I said to myself, I'm going to use this as my poster bitless horse, because he would be the one everyone would be scared to put bitless and wouldn't want to and
for sure,
and would be a candidate for a big Pelham or something, or a Kimberwick.
I have
here we are.
I have just a very interesting anecdote about that, and this was with Hildy. So I haven't put a bit in her mouth since I got her. Well, maybe I did at the beginning, but I haven't, in probably a year and a half. And I had the vet out recently to do their dentals, and she had 2 teeth that were right before where the bit would go that were pretty much ready to fall out. So, and so imagine somebody using a bit and I do their teeth, at least once a year. if not twice a year, depending on their age. But so he had to pull them, and they like came out immediately. So it wasn't a big deal. But can you imagine using a bit with a horse that has 2 teeth like that? I mean, they obviously were hurting her. And yeah.
Yep.
So anyway,
Yeah.
another
horses-
good reason to not
Yeah,
put a
she
bit in their
was-
mouth.
Good candidate for a bitless. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely.
Is there anyone else who has anything, questions, comments? Before we close out? Going once? Going twice? All right. Well, sounds like everybody enjoyed. And I don't know if you guys, where everybody's at. I knew you wanted to roll. See, I took care of that. I like to let them have that. They like rolling in here in the wintertime because it's so hard and yucky outside, and get a good roll in the sand. So often I'll take the tack off before the end of the ride so that they can have their roll. And you'll notice that he's rolling all the way over from side to side, which is a sign of a good back, right? So notice if your horse can only roll on one side. Well done, Angus. That means our suppleness work was good. So I look for that when they roll all the way over on their back. It's a good spinal suppleness test. There, that felt better, huh? All right. Well, I've enjoyed this, and I hope you guys got a lot out of it, and kind of an insight into my process. I'm going to be taking a little bit of a break for the holidays, obviously. Through January, we'll be returning to class and session in February. I will be sending out a replay link within the next 48 hours. And also, if you want to ask questions, this is for the people that are missing the class, probably you can send me questions after the fact. And I hope everyone has a good holiday. And also, if you have something you want to see in a class, I come up with stuff that I want to share that I think is useful, but if there's something that you're looking for, I mean, there's no limit to what I can do with these classes on Zoom and who I can reach, so you all are able to attend and see replays. Remember that on the website, I have all of this stuff, any Zooms that you've missed in the past, they're all on the website for members to view as long as they're members. So if you would like to take a stroll around, you can also get 24-hour free trial memberships to look at the content that we have on there available. But I encourage you also, if you're looking to train with me further, I have the mentor level of the Mentor Pros, which is for people who want to do virtual one-on-one coaching with me and have access to the classes. So I feel like it's a pretty cool offer. I try to stay in contact with people through my website. And then if you have Zoom or Pivo, you don't necessarily have to be able to have a robot camera. You can film your work and then send me the videos and we can chat about it. If we use Zoom, I can record the virtual coaching and you'll have a copy of it for your records, and that's in my Mentor Gold level. And then if you want to just have the premium level, you have access to all the replays, and the only thing is just not the coaching. But you can also just get coaching sessions with me one-on-one. You can just pay for a coaching session, virtual coach, anytime. You don't have to have membership or anything. So nice to meet some of you I've never met before in the virtual world, and I'll see you hopefully in another class and on social media. Bye.